disciples in the same boat like with Peter and the disciples. It said that pain brings the best out, but that's oxymoronic like we tribe had faith singing stressed out. Any feelings of hopelessness, delete them. God's our Waldo in the picture the whole time, but we gotta focus to see him.
Okay. So good evening again. Good evening. My name is Callie Graves, and on behalf of Aging While Black and our partners at AARP, I want to welcome you to this very special evening. It is truly an honor to be here in the historic Ebenezer Baptist Church, a sacred place that has shaped many movements, nurtured leaders, and held space for generations of Black voices striving toward liberation, dignity, and justice. Standing here, we are reminded that every major step for our people has included the wisdom, the courage, and the steady presence of our elders. Tonight, as we explore elderhood in a fractured America, we continue that lineage. We are here to listen, to reflect, and to imagine together what it means for Black elders to not only age, but to lead, to thrive, and to be fully seen in a society that often overlooks them. This conversation is a part of a multi-city journey connected to the newly released book, Aging While Black, A Radical Reimagining of Aging and Race in America, a work that offers both a blueprint and a mirror for improving the Black aging experience in this country. Our partnership with AARP is rooted in our shared commitment to ensuring that as we all age with equity, safety, and dignity. We are grateful for their leadership and their belief in elevating Black elders' voices and stories. Tonight's conversation will be guided by two extraordinary leaders whose work continues to shift narratives and expand what is possible. First, I am going to welcome my partner in change and author of Aging While Black, Raymond A. Jetson. Raymond is a lifelong public servant. He's a former pastor of 23 years, a visionary leader dedicated to building thriving communities. Almost 3 years ago, Raymond and I launched Aging While Black, a movement committed to transforming the aging experience in America. Raymond?
So I am truly thankful that you guys are here and that you've joined us. I am grateful for it. Callie mentioned that we launched Aging While Black uh, almost 3 years ago, but we have been working together for more than a decade on a number of different projects, and it is just a joy to experience working on things that matter to you with somebody who shares your passion and also has, as my great grandmother used to say, the patience of Job when it comes to me. I'm thankful, sincerely grateful for you guys being here. I want to start the conversation before I invite my dear friend to come and join me for a conversation. I want to read a very brief chapter. It's like 4 or 5 pages. But before I do, I want to give you the background for it. Even though it is chapter 1 in the book, it was written after I had submitted the manuscript. And I had finalized the manuscript and I'd sent it in to the editors for review. And there was just an uneasiness in my spirit because America had started to change profoundly after the election. And so even though it's chapter 1, it was actually written after everything else. And I insisted that it needed to start this book. And so it is Elderhood in a Fractured America. When I started to write this book in the middle of 2024, the realities facing aging Black people in America were pressing. They demanded attention. As the conclusion of the writing process approached in the spring of 2025, I noted that the stakes have grown exponentially. The social and political landscapes have been altered dramatically. A more volatile, divided, and threatening version of America is emerging. The concepts of justice and opportunity that undergird this work discussed in the context of civil rights for Black Americans are systematically and aggressively disfigured for all. The ancestors would be disappointed if this work were considered complete without addressing 2025 America, especially for what it means for the people and the communities at the heart of my work. The words and images accompanying the fracture in our national identity overwhelm us. They seem endless. Political extremism, attacks on hard-earned civil rights, and rhetoric dripping in hate and division are treated as normal activities by news outlets. Seeking diversity, equity, and inclusiveness is tantamount to criminal behavior. Voting rights purchased with the flesh and blood of those who preceded us are summarily eroded. Long-standing public institutions are castigated and decimated. In the midst of this alarming retreat from democratic norms and institutions, many in positions of leadership seek to leverage division for power and wealth. To describe this as a season of discord would be an understatement. We cannot overlook the profound impact these fractures have on aging, particularly for Black elders. As detailed extensively throughout, people of color are disproportionately impacted by these conditions. The haphazard elimination of public programs, scripted demonization of race, and silencing of dissenting voices now place aging Black people in even greater jeopardy. The intersection of race, age, and politics is a perilous one in 2025. Our lived experience is being removed from classrooms, deleted from the public record, and denied in public discourse. The history of Black people has always been devalued. Now it is being actively erased. Our elders must endure the memory of their struggles dismissed for political convenience. The social safety nets that many rely on because of generational disparity are also under active attack. Plans to reduce or privatize Medicare, Medicaid, and Social Security pose a real and present danger to aging Black people. For us, these are not theoretical debates. These actions represent an existential threat. They deepen isolation, accelerate unfairness, and steal dignity. The intensifying risks also extend to the civic realm. The impediments to participation in the democratic process are increasing dramatically. Actions designed to suppress voting, strict ID requirements, limiting polling locations, and eliminating mail-in voting all have greater impact on older adults, particularly those in Black communities. The painful irony is that these same people fought to secure the right to vote. As political rhetoric becomes more hostile and demeaning towards minorities in general, Black elders face the risk of their voices being drowned out or ignored entirely. Agendas that elevate supposed efficiency over human rights cast aside their lived experiences. Harmful and foolish notions of superiority dismiss their culture and identity. Amid this spiraling assault on civil rights, fighting for agency and well-being of Black elders is a matter of democracy itself. The risks are not confined to mere rhetoric and political grandstanding. The dangers faced by aging Black people are being implemented in public policy. From its first days, the administration of the 47th President unleashed a series of executive orders that directly attacked diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives throughout the federal government and private sector. The orders widely expected to chill and prohibit lawful efforts to advance equal opportunity, reverse decades of progress, and undermine the very structures that promote fair hiring practices. Evidence of this specific intent is found in the administration's revocation of Executive Order 11246, initially signed by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1965. The order mandated federal contractors and subcontractors to implement programs to ensure equal employment opportunities for women and minorities. In one stroke of the current president's pen, a foundational protection and important pathway into economic stability for women and minorities is cast aside without any coherent justification. Fundamental incursions into daily life now flow regularly from the same pen. Another executive order seeks to eliminate paper checks in the distribution of Social Security and tax refund, with profound implications for older adults. Actions such as this display a disregard for the number of older Americans without reliable internet access or the skills needed to navigate the online financial system. For many black elders who live in bankless neighborhoods, this modernization is more like exclusion. Such change is only made worse by the politicizing of broadband access. Like many successful federal initiatives, the Broadband Equity Access and Deployment Program is also being decimated. The program provided $42.5 billion to states and territories to build and deploy high-speed internet to underserved areas. Opportunity for marginalized communities is being made a thing of the past. This is a small sampling of the early actions by this administration, points to systematic eradication of opportunity. The impact on aging black people is stark. At a critical juncture in their lives, the structures meant to support them are being dismantled and weaponized against them. This is a serious chapter in American history, especially as it relates to the treatment of its citizens who are black. The weight of the moment is exactly why this book matters. Any exploration of elderhood without directly confronting race and politics would turn a blind eye to critical conditions shaping black aging in America. Nothing about these aspects exists in the abstract. Race and politics determine whether someone has the possibility of living with dignity. They decide who is seen, heard, and valued. This text places elderhood squarely within the broader social, political, and racial landscape. Desensitized messages that disconnect individuals aging in public policy are confronted head on. Aging While Black debunks the myth that aging in America is a race-neutral experience. Aging in America does not unfold the same for all people. History and circumstance matter. For black elders, aging is painfully entangled in systems that have consistently failed them for generations. And now, even the modest gains that have come at great cost are being abolished. But Aging While Black is not a lament or hapless cry for help. It is a standing on the table, passionate declaration that black aging must be understood and respected in its full expression. The call to reimagine the dynamics that shape aging while black is not a luxury. Old fractures are being widened today and demand an unapologetic response. This chronicle is my response. As you continue to read these pages, remember, the stakes could not be higher. That is elderhood in a fractured America. And when we thought of the final book discussion, we believed that it was important to center a conversation around this reality in America. And we could think of no place more fitting for that conversation than Atlanta and Ebenezer Baptist Church as the place to have that conversation. So that is why we are here tonight. Thank you for allowing me to read to you. I'm going to now invite someone who has become a very dear friend, Adrianne Jones, or as I insist, Adrianne D. Jones. When Callie and I were introducing Aging While Black, it was at an American Society on Aging event here in Atlanta. And we literally rented a room in the conference center and started passing out cards and pens and other stuff, saying to people, we want to talk to you about black aging. And we had a table in the exhibition hall, and one of the people who stopped by was Adrianne Jones, and she said, I do a radio show that's focused on aging, and I'd really like to interview you. And so literally the first interview that I did about aging while black was with this wonderful sister. And so when we started talking about this conversation, there was only one person that I wanted to share this space with. Adrianne has a consulting firm, Senior Resources and Consulting Services. Her radio show, Gerald Juice, is just an amazing homage to black aging, but with a twist. And so I am thankful that Adrianne said yes when I reached out to her. And I'd like to invite Adrianne to come and join me, and we're going to have a seat and have a conversation, and we'll leave room for your questions. So please join me, Adrianne Jones.
Thank you, Reverend Jetson. When Reverend Jetson calls, you have to say yes. But I am so honored to be able to have this conversation, like you said, with a dear friend, and to see how the Aging While Black movement has grown since that room, 2023. And I was just so intrigued that someone at this conference was brave enough, bold enough to say, we're going to have this conversation here. And if any of you have ever been, then you know that it's not many of us walking around that conference at African Americans. So I was excited about that. And then I do have to tell, from 2023 to 2024, at the same conference in San Francisco, it was about 300 people in the room, and Aging While Black had its own track. So I get emotional when I see growth, so I congratulate you, Callie, and everybody. Yes, give them a hand. On the team, a phenomenal job, but you're here in Atlanta. We're talking about your book, Aging While Black, a radical reimagining of race and aging in America. And so I want you to tell us, what does it mean to you? How do you feel, being here in Atlanta, having the conversation now, at this point in America's history, and at Ebenezer?
So I shared with a couple of folks that in this moment, Atlanta and Ebenezer are not locations. They are symbols. Mm-hmm. They matter. They mean something. Mm-hmm. Driving up and passing by the King Center, coming in and seeing the picture of Daddy King, and I took a picture of the historic sign at the other church. This is a symbolic moment, not just to be symbolic, but to say there's something about our past journey that's important to understand in our present circumstances. And sometimes, with the Sankofa, sometimes you have to look back in order to grasp that which is most valuable in order to move forward. Right. And so this was an intentional moment. At Atlanta, I have a book that actually former Mayor Shirley Franklin mentioned to me in a call, and I ordered it. And it is Atlanta, Our National Capital. And it talks about the history of black life in Atlanta over over generations. And so that's why we're here. It's an important moment in time, and this is an important place to stop and say that something important has happened here and continues to happen here, and we need to build on that.
Sure. And I do want to ask you, listening to your book, I've read the excerpts of your book. I've read about the testimonies that people have shared, from just experience. It's not just a book read, but it's an experience. And you walk your readers through the Aging While Black experience. And so I want to ask you, what stories or encounters have shaped your desire to write Aging While Black?
I was on a call. Aging While Black has started some work in San Francisco. And we were doing one-on-one calls with people who had come out to our initial convening. And I was on a call with a brother who leads the Bayview Hunters Point senior aging services. Bayview and Hunters Point is a historically significant black community in San Francisco that's undergoing significant gentrification. And we were on the Zoom call, and this brother held up a copy of my book that had Post-it notes all through it. And throughout the conversation, when I was asking questions about his work and about San Francisco and the Bay Area and black aging, he kept saying, well, as you write in the book, as you write in chapter, as you say in this section. Right. And so, I think Callie used the phrase, the book was intended to be a blueprint and a mirror.
Right.
To put forth, I've done a lot of speaking, go to conferences and other things, talk about the 3 pillars of Aging While Black, being recalibrate the village, embrace innovation, and lean into the spirit of Sankofa. But you can't really develop what that means in a 30-minute keynote address. And so I wanted to expand this conversation about how we have to think differently about black aging, because, my dear friends, the systems in place, please forgive my English for any English teachers in the room, it ain't working. It ain't working for black people. And so we really need to think about that. And so I wanted to provide some direction, but I also wanted to ground it in our lived experience. And so when you look at the dedications, the first people I dedicated to are my great-grandparents. I grew up next door to my great-grandparents for the first 11 years of my life. And even my cousins of my generation will share that I was my great-grandmother's favorite. But I saw my great-grandmother and great-grandfather couldn't read. They signed their name with an X. They had 12 kids. They succeeded in life. I watched my great-grandfather buy a plot of land on a handshake. and he'd grow produce year-round. He'd come home in his station wagon. He'd put stuff in bushels, and it was like, take this to Martha. Take this to Miss Roach. Miss Roach was the midwife who delivered all 12 of his children. Take something to Miss Roach. Do this, do that. He'd send some in to my great-grandmother who could do miracles with stuff. And the rest he sold to feed his family. And so I watched. My great-grandfather died in his early 90s. He'd been sick for about 6 months before he died. My great-grandmother died at 98. She literally went to sleep and didn't wake up the next morning. Had not been sick. And so, you know, I watched these folks thrive in horrific circumstances. I am the primary caregiver for my now 92-year-old mom, who fell a couple of years ago, 3 years ago almost now, and damaged her back, her head. My mom now ambulates with a walker. This was an amazingly independent woman who now can't drive and is in that horrible sweet spot of being a retired school teacher, and so making too much money to qualify for public services, but not enough to pay for the care she needs. If I am here in February of next year, I'll be 70. Aging while black is not something I read about. I've seen it all my life. I live it every day. My dad died at 55. And I didn't realize how young he was until I approached my 55th birthday. All of that is what it means to age while black in America. And that's what fueled writing the book for me.
Wow, that is so powerful. And as you're talking about black elders, that resonates with me, because that is the reason, honestly, why I got into gerontology and I pursued that field, because of the love of my grandmother and watching her mother and my grandmother's sisters, you know, care for us, care for their families, care for all of their husbands until their husbands passed away at early ages, right? And so, you know, now I think when I talked to you this week that I was at my aunt's house, she's 91, her older sister still living is 95, and last year she lost her friend, her guy friend, her boyfriend. Her boyfriend died, and he was 107. And the way they met is because they were going to a senior center and learned that he did not know how to read or write. So my grandmother and my aunt would help him with his bills and help him pay his bills. And so I look at that and I would love how, you know, the community honored my elders and honored my grandmother, no matter who they were, drug dealer or professional. Hats were off when it came to the elders at the time that we grew up. And so I have to ask you that as my next question is, how has the role of black elders as community anchors changed over the past few decades, particularly in the light of the social and political division?
So, first of all, thank you for sharing just your own grounding in the power of black elders. And I'm going to tell my wife, if she happens to leave the world before me, I'm going to act like I can't write, so I can see if I can get a little attention along the way. But I think there are a number of factors that came into play. First of all, one of the things, and I know Callie has heard me say this incessantly, one of the most important things that we could do is free the word elder from the prison of the word elderly.
Yes, I like that.
Because, you know, we are we talk about the elderly, and inherent in that narrative is this decline and frailty
Yes.
and somebody who needs care.
Yes.
But the black elders I grew up around, certainly they got to a point that they needed care, but they didn't need anybody's pity or sympathy or other things.
Yes.
And you treated them with respect. You know, I share with folks, respect your elders didn't simply mean respect older people. It meant recognizing that there is a place of responsibility and honor that comes with the wisdom associated with aging. And I think a couple of things happened. First of all, we lost that sense of that there is value in that wisdom,
Right.
and it deserves respect.
Right.
You know, as my great-grandpa used to say, there are a lot of fools who die young. You know, and so respecting what it takes to navigate life and accomplish things, we've lost that respect. But on the other side of that, baby boomers haven't done the best job of understanding the responsibility that comes with being an elder.
Right.
Because elder isn't about just you respect me. It's I recognize that I have a responsibility
Right.
in that role and in that place. And so I think, you know, this whole narrative around frail aging and the elderly, I think likewise losing the respect and honoring the responsibility of the role. And lastly, I think, you know, capitalism and the, you know, the Fifth Avenue advertising, this message that if it's not young, it's not good,
Right.
that permeates media also contributed to it.
That is, it's amazing to hear you talk about, you know, the baby boomers in their, you know, they're young, but they're entering into, you know, super aging. And I always look, you know, my mother is a baby boomer, and I say, are you prepared? I'm not trying to be disrespectful, and I'm not going to say it. So I'm really thinking this. What? Okay, because everyone comes from different walks. And baby boomers, everybody does not age the same. So every baby boomer does not have the same issues as it relates to aging, right? Some are caregivers, some are not caregivers. Some have their parents who are super agers caring for them. So it's just different for everybody across the board. So I have to ask you, as my next question, what do you see as the most urgent issue facing Black elders in America today, and why? And then I want to ask you to follow up with that is, where do we begin to rebuild what has been fractured?
Yeah. So I think a couple of things. One, I think the most pressing issues are around establishing the environment, the container. I almost hate using the term safety net, but the container that provides what people need to thrive and to live their best life. You know, Medicare, Social Security, they have their issues and their challenges, but we've paid into it. And there's not something better than that's readily available. And so I think we have to make certain that there is a structure in place that provides people what they need as they age. I am very cautious to not say we need to fix what was.
Right.
Because what was didn't serve us well. But that doesn't mean we throw it all away. And so I think we have to build something that really allows people to thrive. I think there has been a really important shift that has taken place with this administration. Attempting to execute federal policy that has meaning and impact for black people is an extremely heavy lift in this environment. And so I think that we have to be thoughtful about what it looks like in states and cities and local governments where we have a greater opportunity for influence and where direct action can have the greatest impact to protect some of our communities and neighborhoods and begin to build from the ground up. Cheryl and Eiffel with the NAACP Defense Fund for a while made a comment that resonates with me. She said, you can't always live in a season of harvest. Sometimes there comes a seed planting time. And our generation has benefited from the harvest of the seeds that our elders planted.
Yes.
Now it's our time to plant.
Yes.
For the generations that will come behind us.
Yes. I read this in your book, and it stuck out to me, and I said, I have to ask him this. Can you, I know what you're thinking, I'm not there yet, but this one excerpt that said, integrate advocacy with informed action. I want to ask you to tell the readers, tell the audience what that means.
So I think it's actually chapter 7 of the book where I talk about the shift from advocacy to activism. Advocacy is generally speaking on behalf of, and there are groups and there are lots of folks and organizations and entities who advocate on behalf of aging people and aging black people. I think aging people, especially aging black people, need to be equipped to speak on their own behalf.
Yes.
And the one thing about this generation of a large segment of baby boomers is that our childhood and our youth was shaped by social action and activism. And so I think that it's important that we start thinking about how black elders can become their own spokesperson and be equipped to shape through policy the world that they want to live in.
Sure. And I want to ask you this. If you could redesign one policy or one system to better support black elders, what would it be, and what impact do you believe that it could have?
I would totally redo the aging services system. Because while I know, not think, I know that there are just a sea of well-meaning, good-hearted, hardworking, honorable people, I think that the system is equipped or designed to make certain that people need the system rather than how do these people thrive and so I would redesign, I would radically redesign the aging services system. One, so that aging was not treated as an isolated reality. I am aging with concerns around my money, concerns around my health, concerns about my neighborhood. And so how do we have a more holistic discussion about the life that I'm experiencing as I age and not just the fact that I'm aging?
Right.
That would be my change.
That would be your change. You know, when I think about aging, I see social media and all the different things and what everyone has to say from young adult to older adult. But I think the thing that resonates with me most is aging unapologetically. And aging in your lane, you don't have to look like this one, have what this person has, but you have your own meaning. You are what aging looks like. And so I have to ask you my question. I think you know what I'm getting ready to ask you. Tell us about this Sankofa tattoo.
So I got my first tattoo at 66. And it is the Sankofa bird, and I got it on my right shoulder. And you know, I don't know how it sounds trite or whatever, but every morning I get out of the shower and I look in the mirror. There's a reminder that I have an obligation to take what has been a part of my past and pay it forward to the future. And so, if my wife were here, I would say my first tattoo, and she would mumble, and last. But I got the Sankofa bird tattoo.
I like that.
Yeah. And so we want to open it up for some questions from these folks. I want to ask you one before.
Okay.
Your journey as a gerontologist and with Gero Juice, what has surprised you most in your journey and in your experiences on the radio and otherwise about this whole aging thing?
About this whole aging thing. You know, I see what I am surprised about is that, you know, social media is big now. And so when I see some social media accounts that are, you know, owned and operated by seniors that have 1.2 million followers and 500,000 followers. I love to see that because I'm like, yes, like, you know, they're on social media, they're making an impact. I cannot remember this one lady's name, but she lives in a nursing home and she shares, this is what I'm wearing today, and I'm going to see my boyfriend, and I broke up with my boyfriend. You know who I'm talking about, right? And I don't want to have, you know, lunch with him today. And it's so funny to me because, you know, we wouldn't think, you know, she's really in this nursing home living her best life. Who cares if it's at the same dining room table and she sees the same people? She is aging her way with her camera, with her own flavor, right? Doing her own thing. And so, you know, that's something that people probably 5-10 years ago, when we wouldn't have thought that so many seniors would be on social media and so influential. But I love that, and I love how seniors are saying, I'm getting ready to say it. I'm not my parents. I'm getting ready to, you know, I'm going to share this secret with my children. I'm going to share, you know, my journey with my grandchildren because I don't want them to make the same mistake that I made, because many of the seniors I know in my family and many of the families of my peers, a lot of things stayed hush-hush for a long time. And then the hush-hush played out in the family because some mistakes were getting, you know, they're making the same mistakes. But I like how, you know, it's like, now I'm going to use my voice. I'm going to help somebody. I'm going to save this one. Another thing that I'm seeing is that, you know, some of my senior peers, they're like, I'm retired from this one, but I'm getting ready to do this. I can knit, I can, you know, bake, and I'm starting a second career, and I love that. So those are some of the things that stick out to me.
Thank you. I have a dear friend of mine who lives in D.C., and he says, I have rewired, not retired.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I like
that.
Too.
So we're going to give you guys an opportunity to ask questions. Just, Callie, can you pass me that book that's on the table there? Because I do want to shout out my brother who is in the room. Chuck C. Nathaniel Brown. Stand up, good brother. has done amazing work around brain health and dementia, has a book, has a documentary, Remember Me, which is one of the most powerful things to experience, not watch. And you just honor me by being here. And as I share with you in social media and in messages privately, much respect for the work that you do. And I'm glad to be in fellowship with you, brother. Thank you.
Hi.
Hi.
First, thank you for the book. I can't wait to get it.
Yes.
And thank you for this great conversation. My name is Rob, and I'm a member here at Ebenezer Baptist Church. And I won't go into my background, but the most important thing I'll say is that for the last 6 years, my sister, my brother, and I, along with a very loyal caretaker, cared for my mom and my dad. My dad died in February. He was 97 years old. My mother left us 2 years ago after a stroke, and she was 89. And we know that they transitioned to heaven knowing they were loved.
Yeah.
Now, what I know is that there are many seniors who are alone. My parents were never alone, literally never alone. Someone was always with them because we wanted them to know that we had their back, and it was a blessing for us. And so you started by saying this was a movement.
Yes, ma'am.
And I've experienced it as an individual movement. I can't tell you how many friends have called me and we have conversations. How did you do it? How did you get ready? How did you this? Much like you're saying, because, how do you talk about this in advance? How do you get your parents positioned? How do we really create a movement of readiness, a movement of community, a movement of not just taking care of our parents, but helping our entire community of Black families be ready for the need to care for one another, to be prepared for what's coming. So if you can speak to the movement aspect.
So the first thing that I will say to everybody in the room is become as informed as you possibly can about what's available where you are. Miss Jackie Thornton sitting in front of you is just a brilliant, passionate, loving sister who has connections throughout. There's lots happening in Atlanta around aging and Black aging that's really, really important. And so tap into what's happening around you, understanding how I can connect, how I can contribute, how I can learn, how I can invest. As it relates to the movement part of this, we do our work at Aging While Black in what we describe as 2 dimensions. I'll deal with the second one first, and that's vertical, and that's we go into a community and begin to work with a group of stakeholders to build around the aging system that's in place. We are currently working in Denver, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, and we have a hub of activity in Washington, D.C. But the other domain is what we describe as the horizontal. And it is we try to create these virtual platforms for people to connect across the country around important areas like caregiving, brain health, economic security. And so I would encourage you to go to agingwhileblack.co, not com, as I share with folks. The brother who owns the domain for agingwhileblack.com wants $20,000 for it. And I told him I'm not paying $20K for an M. So we are agingwhileblack.co. But sign up. We have these national conversations. We connect people across the country and begin to share how we can do things in local communities that elevate Black aging, but that also connect us with people in other parts of the country. So I'd invite you to do that.
I also want to add something or ask you to add something that's more on the family level. we had this idea about this toolkit or just this conversation at family reunions. Can you talk a little bit about that?
So we believe that it is really important to make salient information available in the most approachable ways possible. And so one of the things that we have gone beyond toying around with is a toolkit around the village and aging that would be available for family reunions. And it would prompt families in ways to have these important conversations during the family reunion and to center the infrastructure that supports family members as we age across the process.
Families and learning something. I was talking to my mother the other day, and she said something about her sister Helene. I said, "Who's that?" Literally. So then she three-ways my sister. Me and my sister are like 12 years, 13 years apart. She's like, "Don't you remember Helene?" She's like, "Your sister doesn't know anything about Helene." And apparently it was my grandfather, who I never met, his first wife's child, whatever. But just like you said, it's that the layers of the secrets.
Yes.
And my mother, like, I'm from Baltimore, and my family is originally from Richmond, but my grandmother, she kept her boys and gave her girls away. So her girls and the boys, they all grew up in Baltimore, but the boys grew up with her, and the girls grew up in different families. It's crazy. So when you think about these things that you have all these layers in, it is a different experience that other families probably don't have that we have. But I think, switching gears from an innovator side, like, I have a company called Happy Talks. We are in the social isolation space because we understand if people are not connecting, it affects their health. And so we have conversations, but it's interesting too, being an innovator while Black is like a whole different experience. We already know the fundraising, et cetera, whatever, but it's like you're trying to make impact, and you're like, dang, y'all, it's just really hard to have that impact and go to these doors, and it's like white man after white man after white man after white man after white man, and you're like, I just want to help people. Like,
yeah, and so first of all, in terms of family dynamics and secrets, I share with folks, it's a good idea to share your secrets because in so many instances, and this is based on 23 years as a pastor, they show up at funerals. They show up at funerals. And then you got all of this slightly beneath, if you're fortunate, slightly beneath the surface drama. You know, I've had two instances where it didn't stay below the surface. Just real briefly, we're in a building associated with a Black church, and so you'll appreciate this. You know, there was literally a child who stood up and said, "I told y'all my name needed to be in that program." That was my daddy. I mean, in the middle of the service, you know, and so it shows up at funerals. So, you know, go ahead and get them out there. And in terms of family dynamics, my brother grew up with my grandmother in another town. And, you know, it was only after I got to be of a certain age that I understood how my brother ended up with my grandmother and those dynamics. And so those are some important cultural aspects of our life. Now, specifically as it relates to your business, one of the things that I believe is critical for entities like Aging While Black and others is that we have to create space for people to know about who you are, what you're doing, how it intersects. And we also need to be willing to kick over some doors and say this matters to us. And it's also a place where Black elders as activists also become important. Because when people say, no, I don't want that, I want this, it makes a difference. And so I'd love to talk to you and see how we might be able to amplify the important work you're doing. Because the most isolated demographic in America are black women over the age of 60. Hello.
Hi again. Hi, I'm Mary Newton. And Ray, you know, I worked for the Area Agency on Aging here in Atlanta for 15 years. And one of the things that we don't realize is any aging service or any social service in this country is woefully underfunded. So
Yes.
even the Area Agency on Aging, all the county and city offices of aging and aging services, they work with very thin budgets, you know, and you know, we could say that's by design, right? You know, but I wanted to know, you mentioned that you're working with these aging entities in other cities. Who are you working with in the Atlanta area?
So we don't have a body of work in Atlanta. We just have some wonderful relationships that we connect with and build around. But we've not started an Aging While Black centered work here.
Well, you know, I would be interested in helping with that because I do think, and I just know some of the people that we work with at this area agency on aging are a little more enlightened than some of the others. And even the gerontology program at Georgia State, it's a very, it's because we're here and we can hold them accountable.
Yeah.
So I think you'd have a great response.
So I mean, Atlanta is a whole different place than lots and lots of other places where we have been and where we have gone. My suggestion to begin would be to just have a conversation among people and to say, you know, what are you seeing? What are you seeing? How can we work and build together? And we'll certainly be happy to be supportive of that. But you are blessed with an aging infrastructure that is far superior to what we see in other cities and other communities.
I just have a question. My name is Carol Perkins. I'm Mary's sister. And I'm not in the, I've never worked for an aging entity at all. But as I listen to the, discussion, Mary says that that support for these services are very thin. But listening to all this, I get the sense that aging is big business. And there are too many people in the pot. So perhaps there's an opportunity, rather than all these different people getting involved in aging or some aspect of aging, how do we think about consolidating what exists so that we optimize delivery services to people versus thinning things out?
When aging people generally and aging black people specifically start to show up and insist upon it, I write in the book that it is extremely unlikely that the people who benefit from the status quo are going to work to change it. And so to expect meaningful reform from within the system, that's in part why the subtitle of the book is A Radical Reimagining. Tweaking around the edges is not going to accomplish what needs to be accomplished. But we can't expect the people. I write in one of the early chapters in the book, Ron Heifetz and Marty Linsky from Harvard Business School write about the myth of a broken system. And they said the systems aren't broken. They are they are functioning exactly as they are designed by the people who benefit from them. And we keep trying to fix broken stuff that ain't really broken. It's designed that way. And so it requires a different level of intentionality. So if there are another couple of questions, one or two other questions, we're going to respectfully wrap up. And for those who'd like to get a copy of the book, do that, and I'll sign it for you.
Well,
So
but my question is really related to what you were just saying.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, we're being radically redesigned so that we have seniors who are homeless, seniors who are on the street because
They are the
of
fastest growing
Yes.
segment of people who are homeless.
who are homeless, and particularly with the elimination of much of the Medicaid money, which pays for, as most of you already know, seniors who are in nursing homes. They claim it's for assisted living, but assisted livings don't even accept it. But seniors who are in nursing homes are already closing, particularly in rural America, rural communities. So, and you may not answer this, but do you speak to any of your ideas or concepts in your book
Yes.
about the intentional design?
Yes.
Wonderful.
And the first pillar, there are 3 pillars of Aging While Black. Recalibrate the village, embrace innovation and rapid change, lean into the spirit of Sankofa. Recalibrating the village. My great-grandparents both died in their home, raised their children, without getting a single thing from aging services. They were able to thrive because of their village. And we have to rediscover the village. We have to rediscover the role of faith institutions, the role of social organizations, the role of neighbors and friends and families. We have to rediscover multi-generational. You know, my great-grandparents never had to look for caregivers because either one of their children or one of their grandchildren or 2 of their children or grandchildren were always living in the house with them. You know, their house had 3 sections to it, where they'd add on another section for the next child that was going to be coming back or moving back into the house. We have to rediscover, you know, this extended understanding of family and what it means to live in proximity and under the same roof, and understand that the primary responsibility, where it exists for people who are aging, starts with their family. Not some care worker. It starts with family. And so rediscovering that is the beginning of it. Now, at the same time, I was about to say raise hell, but since I am where I am, raise holy hell about the system that doesn't work for us. But at the same time recognizing that the system alone is never going to be the answer to the well-being of our family members as we age.
You know, you just kind of led right into where I was headed with this
Yes,
conversation. I work for AARP Foundation, and last year we did focus groups here in Atlanta with all black elders. And in the conversation, we ended up discovering it was all around personal finance, and we wrote a chapter, and the results we found was called the Catch-22 of Family, and it talked about the 2 sides. One, the family that moves back in and becomes a financial drain on the retired grandmother who's now watching the children, dropping the children, watching the grandchildren, dropping her grandchildren off. Watching the grandchildren, dropping the children off at work because their car isn't working, and then going home and the utility bills are higher, et cetera, et cetera. On the other side, there was the family member who, you know, it was a mom and her father who was working together to put money together to send her daughter to Oxford for the summer, to take advantage of a program so that she can experience education in a big way. So both investments in the family, right? One being one that may pull on your wealth and all that you built up, and the other to try to invest, to try to make sure that your children can, eventually be the ones who can take care of you. So just wanted to hear more about like that family chapter.
So it is this notion of the village, because in some instances it's family, in some instances it's a social organization or a neighborhood group or a congregation that I'm a part of. You know, where do these conversations happen? You know, we have to create, you know, I talk about the importance of congregations. You know, if I were a pastor now, I would be absolutely laser focused on the reality that 20 years from now, my congregation is going to look a lot different than it does today. And what do I need to be doing now to prepare? Because if there's one demographic that hasn't left organized religion, it's older black people. So they're going to be aging in them pews. And so what does that mean? And what are the conversations that we ought to be having that we aren't having? You know, for those who are part of, you know, Black Greek letter organizations, what are the conversations we need to have? I'm a member of a fraternity, and I finally got to work with the local chapter, and the leadership of the chapter was blown away to recognize that 47% of the chapter was 50 or older. Had no clue. And that 20% were over 70. Yet every social event, every service event, everything you do is for people who are 27 to 45. And so where are the places that we have these conversations, and how do we talk about the movement that's necessary to allow black people to thrive well in this country?
I have a question.
Yes.
I know you said too, but I have a thought, and it's always been pressing as we talk about black elders. I think about the subpopulation of our black elders that may be getting out of prison in their late 40s and 50s and 60s, and they're coming back into the community. And I'm thinking about, okay, how are we going to be able to support them, not just financially, but spiritually and mentally, because they're coming from a different ecosystem back out into this. And then I think about those that maybe they did not go to prison, but I have an uncle that was on drugs for over 30 years. And so now that he has come to, his mind goes back to, okay, I need a career now. That should have been started when he started and then finished in his 20s. So he's frustrated because he's not fitting where he thinks he should fit. So I'm thinking about those subpopulations of black elders.
The infrastructure necessary, and that's why we talk about recalibrate the village. The infrastructure necessary to support black aging in all of its complexities does not currently exist. We got to build it. And the important parts of our infrastructure that are in place have to recognize, as I often say, aging will influence, impact, or disrupt your plans. Doesn't matter what organization, entity you are, it will influence, impact, or disrupt. And so it's in our best interest to be thoughtful about it. I will wrap up, and then I'm going to ask my dear friend Cassandra to come from AARP. I did. You know, we were doing the awB Live, the monthly conversations. I did a talk with a brother who's, I think Checo spent 25 years in prison, and he got out. And he said, the whole world has changed in 25 years. And doing my research for my conversation with him, our state had this brief little bout, like so many other places, where we were doing prison reform. You know, of course, you would dare not talk about that now. But we did prison reform. And during the same period, when the population of people going into prison grew by like point something 7%. The number of people in prison over the age of 55 grew by 200%. And in my state, the overwhelming majority of folks who are in prison are black. So you got all of these black folks aging in prison. And as he said in our interview, at some point, almost all of them are going to come home. It's home ready for a 71-year-old black man who went to prison when he was 22. Where does he go to find a strategy to navigate this world? I want to express gratitude to all of you for being here, but Callie started by talking about our partnership with AARP, and I am truly grateful for the partnership and the ways in which AARP has consistently supported the work of Aging While Black. We were able to have a black aging center at ASA and to have a Aging While Black track because of support that we received from AARP. This book talk is supported by AARP. And I appreciate that it's a relationship and not a transaction. And so when we asked our dear friend Cassandra if she would stop by and just say a few words on behalf of AARP to close us out, she graciously said yes. And so would you please come say good evening to these folks, and thank you.
So I got all types of notes because I was like, oh, wait a minute, he said this and he said that and he said that. But I'm going to make it really short. So first off, definitely want to applaud you, Raymond and Callie, for the great work that you guys are doing with Aging While Black. I remember many moons ago when I heard the name, it was like, oh, we got this Purpose Prize winner, Raymond Jetson. And I met Raymond, I was like, oh, what a cool dude. And then had the Aging While Black Institute at ASA. And by the way, Aging in America will be in Atlanta in April. So if you have the opportunity to come to the conference, it's the largest aging conference. So to be hosted April 20 to 23rd, and I believe we'll have Aging While Black Institute, which is fantastic. So definitely try to make it. Adrianne D, I appreciate you as well. There are not a lot of black gerontologists. I taught, no, not enough. There's not very many gerontology programs in the United States. I taught Intro to Gerontology at Georgia State, and I remember a student said, wait, what? I thought this was a class about plants. How about that? And I was like, no, sir. No. He was like, it was an elective. And so I appreciate you and the work that you do, because we do need black folks in the field. We need younger folks in the field. Like I said, I'm going to be a little brief. Just about every topic that we talked about, caregiving, isolation, homelessness, prison, are topics and issues that we are trying to tackle at AARP. Of course, we can't do it all. We can't do it all, right? So we have this wheelhouse, but we're always trying to be innovative and thinking about, well, instead of saying, no, we can't do it, let's start thinking about how do we do it. And so for caregiving, we have a Prepare to Care guide as well that helps people walk through what are the questions that you need to ask before caregiving. You know, what are the questions that we need to ask? How do you have the conversation with mom when it's time to take those keys away? The other thing I'll say is, you know, I'm really moved about this whole notion about recalibrating the community. And I do think that there is a yearning for community among Black folks. I'm working on a survey right now on older African Americans. But before this survey, we also did some focus groups. And one of the biggest thing that came out the focus groups were these people that were 45 and older were talking about, we are concerned about the youth. And my work in retirement is, how do I make impact? How do I help them? How do I mentor them? And so I do think that, you know, as we're all thinking about our work, trying to figure out how to build community, and there's a lot of false narratives out there. So AARP had, I think they may still have it, it's a community resource center in New Orleans. And it was a brick and mortar that was created after Hurricane Katrina to help the community. And it is in the hood, but next to a senior center. And the first thing that the people at the community resource center said is crime went way down because these kids that were out running the street, they respected AARP's name, and they respected that this was near a senior center. And so I do think it's possible. We have a state office here on Peachtree Street, so if anybody's interested in volunteering or supporting, that is an opportune way to do so. And I had a whole lot more to say, but I'm going to stop there and just, again, thank you, thank you, thank you, and thank you all for joining.
And so 2 things to wrap up. One, at the same week of ASA, the Alter Dementia Conference will be happening. And my dear friend, Sister Jackie Thornton, can tell you all about that. It is an amazing, amazing, amazing experience that's just grounded in Black folks and the Black church and the power of community. And so I'm going to be in Atlanta for a whole week. Because I'm coming for ASA, and I'm going to spend the early part of the week there, and I'm going to be the next morning, the next day, whenever the transition to Alter Dementia, I'm going to be at Alter Dementia for that, because ASA feeds my ambition. Alter Dementia feeds my soul. And so I just want to strongly encourage you guys to do that. And the last thing is we came prepared to do, QR codes and other stuff to purchase books. I am going to make an executive decision here. I'm going to give a book to everyone who is here who'd like a book. And so I'm going to go grab a seat over at the table, and I have my trusty blue pen, and I'm going I'll be glad to sign a book and share it with you as a gift for coming out and sharing with us this evening. And so thank you guys so very much for being here, and God bless you. Thank you, Adrianne D.
Thank you, Reverend Jetson.
Stone Cold, always ready to stun us. Anything we going through, he'll bring us through. Here's what we gotta do.